Right. So this is where generally DynamoDB table is what something which we can create when we are working on AWS, because as we all know, AWS is a cloud service provider, provide multiple services for the cloud environment. In the cloud environment, either it can be infrastructure as a service when we are developing any application, whatever the required infrastructure needed for any project to develop it, for any client solutions, and infrastructure can be developed. At the same time, it can be even developed even the software services or platform as a service, all that. In this regard, it's always important for us to create a table, right? So creating a table under DynamoDB, which is one of the prominent database, especially in context to the AWS part is concerned. So when we are creating this table, DynamoDB table here, so wherein here we need to provide the table name, right? For example, right? So customer details is what something we are giving, right? So as a table name here, right? So now when we are uh, giving a table name here, right? So there must be some specific characters, lengths, and all, everything is what something which we have to be seen with. Next, here we need to provide the partition keys. So whenever we are working on the partition keys and all that, so whatever the partition keys are we going to provide? So these partition keys depends on the kind of string we are selecting, or it can be number or something like that. So for example, partition key name, right? So we have selected as a number, let's say for example, 1, 2, 3. So at the same time, when there is any kind of sort keys which we have to be selected, even we need to select the kind of number which was there. So it must be case sensitive, where we need to provide some sort key numbers and all that everything here. Next, we are creating any kind of table and all that. So it's always important for us to do the table settings, especially on DynamoDB. So when we are creating any kind of table settings and all, so this can be varied and categorized into two different things. One is about default settings. The next was customized settings. These are the two different things were there. So default settings were default conditions in context to the table class, at the same time the kind of capacity mode, at the same time reading capacity, writing capacity, auto scaling, right? So all these things are comes under this context. At the same time, when we are working for customized settings and all, according to the needs, according to the features, what is that we are going to select in context to the capacitor planning, right? So when we are creating a DynamoDB standard table class, if you want to customize it, usually according to the workload requirements, followed by kind of patterns which we are following in context to the data access itself is concerned. So this is where generally this capacity planning, capacity calculator will be there, right? So wherein we need to identify how many average items size are we going to take, right? How many items are we selecting, right? So at the same time, when we are working on the reading consistency and all that, right? So how these reading consistencies to be taken. Followed by this, we need to mention about the kind of write consistency standards what we are using here so far. So all these things are comes under the capacity calculator itself is concerned. So make sure when we are customizing the table, so then only all these things are required. So otherwise, if it is a default setting and all, we don't require anything of this sort. So the next one about the capacity calculator, apart from that, we need to create settings for even read and write, right? So either it can be provisioned or on demand, right? So that can be selected. If it's a provisioned and all that, wherein reading capacity, we need to select capacity units and all, everything required to select and all, followed by the secondary indexes, right? So if you want to create any kind of local indexes or creating any global indexes and all, everything can be selected in this index part. Next was that if we need to select even the capacity cost in context to the estimation cost of reading, right? So encryption of it, right? So all these things can be done here. Otherwise, when we are selecting the default settings, wherein default settings will be taken, wherein whatever the table class we are going to take, or else the capacity mode we have. So followed by the reading capacity, writing capacity, everything will be taken into default table settings and all. So this is how generally this table settings and all everything we do whenever we are creating a DynamoDB table in context to the AWS is concerned. So I hope you understood how to create these tables and all everything, right? So this is all about session for today. So if you have any questions, please go ahead.